Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
We move to our next session. I'll invite Dr. Bhavik Champaneri, Dr. Tarun Parmar, Dr. Anil Jain as moderators, Dr. Amit Mishra, Dr. Swati Garekan, Dr. Kashyap Sheth as chairperson. I have pleasure to invite Dr. Swati, who was not only senior in MBBS, but also senior in my school. Dr. Swati Garekar is from Mumbai, and I'm the chair. Over to you to introduce our speaker in the case and further carry on the debate. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for the warm welcome, Dr. Kamal Sharma, and congratulations for the fantastic conference so far. Let's get on to what we are discussing in the next half an hour. We have a 22-year-old unmarried female presenting with exertional fatigue and grade 3 systolic murmur at the pulmonary area with a large ASD with deficient RIMS and a QPQS of 2.2 with mild pulmonary arterial hypertension. So the debate is on what the best strategy should be. We'll start off with Dr. Vishal Poptani from Rajkot, talking on that the ASD closure would be the way to go.
Very good afternoon to all respected chairpersons, moderators, and panelists. It's been a wonderful session so far from Dr. Kamal sir and his team. Thank you for allowing us to talk on this subject, sir. So now coming to our case, where it's which strategy is better for a particular patient, yes, whether it's device or surgery. So let us come to our case. It's a 22-year-old female, unmarried, presented with exertional fatigue and grade 3 systolic murmur at the pulmonary area, and has a large 34 by 38 millimeter ostium secundum ASD with borderline superiors and IVC rims, but adequate all other rims, with a QPQS of 2.2 and mild pulmonary hypertension. So what should be the best strategy? So this is undoubtedly a large ASD. Before embarking on closing a large ASD, what is important for all of us to understand is safety. It is of paramount importance. I can do it, but shall I do it? That is something which we need to keep our options open. As a hardcore structural interventionalist, we all see, we don't hear, there's no risk, we don't see risk, we don't speak any risk. So this is what we have been blamed of. The cardiologists have always been blamed by the surgeons that they don't explain proper risk when it's concerned with doing an interventional procedure. So this is what we need to understand. So whether it's a device or surgery, I'm a proponent for device closure definitely in this patient. And if we decipher this case, I can put it as a very good challenging case. And I'm sure all hardcore structural interventionalists will vouch for doing this. If we go by definition of a large ASD, if we see, there's no universal definition, but previously it was defined as more than 20 millimeters. But now there have been definitions of large ASD, which is a very large ASD if it's more than 32 millimeters, and extremely large ASD if it's more than 38 millimeters. So coming to the determinants of results of catheter closures, we have to define our anatomy. One, anatomy of defect, patient characteristics, the quality of imaging which is there, and most importantly, the operator skill which is there. So what are the anatomical parts which are relevant, which are pertinent for device closure? So if we look at this, all of us are aware of this beautiful picture, which gives us a view of different rims, where you have an SVC, posterior rim, IVC rim, we have an AV valve rim, or we have an aortic rim. So this is something where we have to put our echocardiographic findings, evaluate on this. So the absolute contraindications, if I say, are primarily the mitral rim deficiency, and if we have two adjacent rims which are absolutely deficient. And relative contraindications, yes, the posterior inferior rim deficiency, borderline rims which are there, they are deficient. In our case, however, inferior rim is borderline, the superior is fine, and rest all limbs are adequate. So definitely this is something which is for us. Other aspects which we need to see, whether the atrial septum is malaligned or not, whether it's in hyperdynamic ASD, since it's a young female, whether it's in hyperdynamic ASD. Another thing is whether it's an eccentric ASD or not. So none of these features are present in our patient. Anatomy is such that device-related complications which we anticipate, like the aortic erosion, the free wall injury, and the risk of embolization are less as far as our patient is concerned. So this was more for the anatomically related devices. The patient characteristics are also there. It's a young 22-year-old unmarried female. Avoidance of scar is something which is most important. Social stigma of a scar which is there. So that is also there. Then comes the quality of imaging. We have different imaging modalities like a transthoracic echo, transesophageal, or intracardiac echo. Most of these cases are done under transesophageal guidance, and we have a 4D for us. So whether the defect is circular, oval, crescent, all can be made out quite accurately, which helps us in sizing the defect and device selection accordingly. Of course, the most crucial factor is the operator's skill. Somebody who is quite experienced, has done a sizable numbers, should go in for such a large defect case, which may need modified implantation techniques. So the techniques which are involved, these can be either conventional versus modified, and the modified techniques would include the balloon assisted, the dilator assisted, or the catheter assisted. There are other pulmonary vein engagement techniques also which are available. And for this patient, based on transesophageal echo, I would go in with a 42 mm occluder, which would suffice. Since I'm quite comfortable with my conventional technique of doing an ASD, I would always first attempt a conventional, followed by the balloon assisted technique as far as my experience is concerned. So this is the conventional technique where you go into the left atrium, the upper part, touch it. This is the catheter assisted technique. These are the different examples. This is the over the wire or assisted delivery. On this lower panel, you have the Hausdorff lock sheath, which is there, which is also there as if you are doing such large ASDs. The pulmonary vein engagement techniques are also there, which help us in giving us a proper alignment with the device to the defect. Most important one is the balloon assisted, balloon in your pulmonary vein and the device in LA. And then these are the steps where you can deliver the device very, very safely. Similarly, whether even if it's the device in the right upper pulmonary vein, you can engage it very nicely. So these large defects, when assisted with a balloon, catheter, or a dilator, can be a very easy task. So to conclude my few slides, percutaneous ASD closure is a common procedure in cardiac lab. The keys to successful implantation include thorough echocardiographic evaluation, proper meticulous technique, and prevention and capability of managing possible complications. There are a few commandments. I'll come to that in the last slide. Most important are our echocardiographic markers. The echocardiographic markers, if are suitable, then only less than 1% of secondum ASDs are high-risk defects. This thereby gives us more than 99% of cases to close endovascularly. Standard deployment may not be adequate in all the large challenging ASDs. Different methods such as device deployed in the pulmonary veins, atrial roof, or device over a guide wire, or balloon assisted technique, or Hausdorff sheet technique, or a straight side Hall sheet technique also can be done. Most complications are well understood and hence avoidable. Occluders larger than 38 mm are feasible, successful, and most importantly, safe in majority of the patients. What is more important? Efficacy is higher and the morbidity is lower. And the 10 commandments: thou shalt not have arrhythmias, thou shalt not have residual effects, thou shalt not have late device embolizations, thou shalt not have thrombus formation, thou shalt not have erosions, should not have aortic valve issues, should not have mitral valve issues, shall not have any cognitive dysfunction, shall not have any embolic phenomenon, and most importantly, the late heart failures. So these are the essential commandments. So I rest my case here. Over to my senior esteemed cardiac surgeon, sir, for his views. But I would add still, sir, device closure is the way to go for this patient. Thank you.
Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself. You must have got a notification on your screen.
Thank you, Stuti. Thank you very much, Dr. Poptani, for your presentation. Very systematically done review on transcatheter closure and why you think this would be a good choice for the patient. Speaking against this is Dr. Bhupesh Shah. Can you please tell us why you think surgery is a better idea?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah.
Please share your screen.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
No, sir. You have to share your screen. We are not able to see it.
Hello. 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 Can you see it?
So we can see your screen.
Now, please,
Yeah,
Bhupesh,
okay.
go ahead and make it full screen and we are ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just thanks, Kamal bhai, for inviting me in this conference, and it's excellently going on. And I congratulate you and your team for making such events. Today, I'm going to speak about the minimal invasive surgery closure for ASD. The advantages of MICS for ASD closures are small incision, cosmetically good, safe, autologous tissue. As a surgeon, we generally love to use autologous tissue in body. Long-term results are excellent, and associated anomalies like left mitral valve, aberrant pulmonary vein, tricuspid repair, if the severe TR is there, we can tackle. The disadvantage of MICS are scar, long stay, 4 to 5 days stay. Compared to device closure, it is hardly 2 to 3 days, which are carrying more hospital stay. Post-operative arrhythmias are more common because we are handling with the right atrium. So scar tissue and the arrhythmia, right atrium, which is arrhythmogenic, so due to some scar, and post-operative tissue edema, it produces the more arrhythmia, bleeding, pain, and reperfusion. Rare complication like reperfusion injury of cardiopulmonary bypass. The techniques of MICS, I am not going that detail, but we generally do ASD closure with right beneath thoracotomy of around 5 to 8 centimeter size, direct cannulations of the SVC, IJV, femoral vein, and femoral artery, which is done. Aorta is cross clamp with a Cheatwood clamp, and RA, which is open. So as a surgeon, after opening RA, we sometimes find out some new diagnosis, or we can access and reassess the mitral valve, tricuspid valve, or any abnormal pulmonary vein, which can be tackled easily during operative part. That is the major advantage of MICS over device closure. So let us see the result between MICS and the device closure. The hospital stay, which is 5.6 compared to 1.6 in device closure, residual shunts, which is 0.9 in MICS, and compared to device closure, it is around 3.9%. Treatment efficacy with the MICS is 99.8%, and in device closure, it is around 97.8%. Complication rate, surgical complications from bleeding to re-exploration to wound infection and minor stroke, these are present with the 6.7%, and complication rates are, immediate complication rates are less with the device closure, around 3.5%. As I told, arrhythmias are more common with the minimal invasive surgery compared to device closures. So which are the anatomical limitations in percutaneous device closure? Let us see proper sizing or stretch diameter. Quality of rim tissue, it varies with the patients, it varies with the anatomy, and sometimes it is difficult to assess preoperatively by TE or any other modalities. Accessory penetration of cribriform defect we may miss during the preoperative workup. Position of the coronary sinus or anomalies of the coronary sinus may be present with in some cases. Very small left atrium where large device cannot be fit, particularly it is present with the large ASD in adult patients. Severe pulmonary hypertension, sometimes undiagnosed or might be reactive PS may be there. Then, as my previous speaker told, the results or outcome which depends on selection of devices for ASD closure and experience of the operator. So let us see the device closure immediate complications. Bleeding and hematoma around 3%, migration of device less than 1%, residual shunts is varies with the literature, but it's a significant number that I am going to present in the next slides. Thromboembolism is between 1 to 7%. It also varies with the device and the chamber size. Arrhythmia, as I previously mentioned, SVT, bradycardia, some degree of the heart block, rarest is AV block, which is also present. Cardiac rupture, rare, but it is documented nowadays. So let us see the late complication. We are more concerned about the long-term result with the ASD device closure. So thromboembolisms around 4%, varies with the type of device. Arrhythmia 11% after 10 years of the device. Nickel hypersensitivity, it produces the migraine, that is also emerging complications and sometimes intractable with the patients also. New aortic regurgitation, particularly in pediatric age group, it varies from 1 to 8%. Cardiac erosion and migration of devices less than 1%. Aortic rupture more common in superior rim deficiency. It's a rare, but it's nowadays more and more cases are documented. Residual shunts also varies with the literature, but it is between 1 to 14%. So let us see why we are concerned. We are concerned with the safety, efficacy, and long-term reason both are more concerned for surgeon and cardiologists. So keep in mind certain complications are late complications are coming nowadays more in the literature. Let's see. So residual shunt, significant residual shunt, more than 200 cases, 14% at 1 year and 6% at 7 years. So reintervention rate with any residual shunt, which is quite higher with the trans ASD closure, 7.3 versus 0.3% for the with the surgery. Aortic rupture, less numbers are documented, but nowadays we come across it. I also come across the one patient. At that time I was not aware with this type of the complication. Later on I read the literature and we could find out we could not survive that patient. More and more documentations are coming with the cardiac erosions. Implant device, these are clearly says that 3 patients cardiac erosion which is present in the 3 patients per 1,000 patients. Aortic fistula is a more documented, like that will like presented like RSOV. Significant aortic regurgitation, 9% in devices closure due to tissue overgrowth in long term, which is particularly present in pediatric patients. 2020, the meta-analysis which shows MIX is a safer procedure and favorable, and it leads to an effective and more durable repair with the MIX. So long-term result compared with the review of medical literature which shows long-term results are not null, but the late complications like aortic rupture, erosion, regurgitant valve or residual shunts to be tackled, to be explained very well to the patients. And as a cardiologist, as a surgeon, we should know each and every late outcome of this procedure, and it should be explained properly to the patient, because we are more worried with some life-threatening complications which are not documented in our journal, but the more and more literature which is coming out and more concern, and there is no follow-up guideline which is established by cardiologists or surgeon how to follow up with the device closure. So my conclusion, MIX is a better option in all type of the ASD irrespective of size, location, deficient rim and associated anomalies. Prolonged hospital stay compared
The time is up.
Yeah, one slide only. Percutaneous closure are only apprehension that restrict the acceptance of surgery. Associated anomaly can be tackled very well. Residual shunt, mild to moderate regurgitation lesions after carries a long-term morbidity. Late cardiac rupture and device migrations are some dreaded complications which are less documented. and discuss in device closure results. So follow-up protocol to be established after device closure. New regurgitation should be early diagnosed, and if any residuals are reintervention should be done honestly. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent talk by both the speakers. Over to chair. We have a surgeon and an interventional cardiologist both on panel, so we'll be looking forward to, and we have two good pediatric interventionists also, Dr. Bhavik and Dr. Tarun also with us. So Swati and Dr. Amit Mishra. Amit Mishra has got one of the widest series of publications for complex congenital. Dr. Amit Mishra.
Dr. Amit Mishra, what's your word on this? I really enjoyed both the presentations. So I'd like to know what
Dr.
you
Anil
think
Jain
as
is
a
also
surgeon.
there. Let's have first from the surgeons and then Dr. Swati, Dr. Tarun and Dr. Bhavik and Dr. Kashyap Sheth can chip in.
Dr. Amit, can you hear us? Not sure if he's logged in. Or Dr. Kashyap, would you like to say a word? My co-chair, Dr. Sheth. So I'm not sure if I hear him.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Amit, we hear you.
I really enjoyed both the presentations and really very excellent. It's a very controversial topic to comment on. But I personally believe whenever it is possible with the experience of a good cardiologist, if he can close the defect with the device, it is always a good practice. But sometimes they try to cross the borders and then they try to intervene in the cases which are really not worth closing by devices. Many of the time when we come across the devices which are, embolized sometime in the mitral valve and sometime through tricuspid valve, sometime in RVOT, then you find there's hardly any rim. So what I personally believe that you should only intervene in the cases where you're dead sure that this can be devised. And just in experimenting it, sometimes it can be disastrous. Ours is an institute, we can approach a surgeon and team within minutes and the things are sorted out. But sometimes when you don't have such a good surgical backup, then it is disastrous. So I only commend the cardiologist should intervene the cases which are really deviceable. And whenever we have retrieved the devices, we find that the cases were not deviceable. That is what I personally believe.
Dr. Kashyap, what do you have to say to this? I agree with Dr. Amit's point. Got to choose the cases correctly. And also add as an 11th commandment to what Dr. Poptani said, the 11th commandment should be that you should have surgical standby for all your cases in the hospital. Dr. Kashyap, please, your word. I am not sure if he's in. How about we have Dr. Bhavik, Dr. Tarun?
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. So it's an interesting topic and carefully selected topic, and it is important and it's a good debatable topic whether to go ahead. So 34 by 38 mm. So we are dealing with maybe a very large to extremely large, according to Dr. Poptani said. So most important thing, being a cardiologist and being into intervention, I would favor device therapy as a first choice. But most important aspect in selecting this case is careful imaging, which is most critical component of this planning. So careful imaging. You have to be sure which rims are adequate. If you're talking about a borderline IVC rim, are you sure that this is covering? And some, as Dr. Poptani said, that 2 adjacent rims should not be deficient. So because that won't hold your device. So you have to be very sure that if you are talking about IVC rim deficient, it should cover maybe not more than 20% of your circumference of the rim. So that is very critical. So imaging is the most important component, whether you have to do or you don't have to do. First, once you are selected, then comes your skill. So skill plays a critical role. So this is not a case who beginners can do and beginners should go ahead with this case. So this is the skill which is important, and most important thing in this patient is a routine techniques of device doesn't work here. So you have to go ahead with modified techniques, modified implantation techniques like wire assisted or catheter assisted or balloon assisted techniques. And in that, one has to be comfortable and one has to have done such cases. Then only you can go ahead with this case. And most important in this is to have a surgical backup. You cannot do in an institute where you don't have adequate surgical backup, because there is always a chance of embolization on table or late embolization. So, and pros towards surgery in this patient, being in an institute where we have a good surgical backup, we have good surgical skilled surgeons who are doing mini thoracotomy, because mini thoracotomy or minimal invasive ASD closure is also a surgery which required a skill. So skilled surgeon who is used to do minimal cardiac surgery, that is also important. And being in an institute where we have a good skilled surgeons who are doing mini surgeries, I would not be very, my threshold won't be very high for giving this patient for surgery as well. But my first choice would be device. If I'm sure and imaging, I'm getting a good imaging, then I would go for device closer, but I will keep my surgeon to my backup.
Totally agreed with you there, Dr. Bhavik. Dr. Anil Jain, are you there? Would you like to have a word? What do you think about Dr. Tarun? Yeah, I'm not sure if they are there. So
Dr. Anil is there. I think he is speaking, but he's.
Yeah. Listen to both the presentations. Both the presentations were very nice. As Dr. Bhupesh and Dr. Amit Mishra said, this particular case, considering the rims are deficient a bit, the straight away decision for this particular patient should be surgical closure, because results of emergency surgeries are not at par with of elective surgeries. So anything done in emergency is always a mess. So I particularly, to sum up, I would recommend this particular patients for minimal invasive surgical closure in an expert hand. Thank you.
So well said. And that could be our conclusion actually from this session, that be careful, select your case very carefully. And remember, emergency handling of anything will not be as good as, optimally planned out. You may have to actually go via sternotomy if you end up having to retrieve the device. And bottom line, we're all colleagues here, surgeons and cardiologists, and patient welfare should be foremost. Dr. Kashyap, last word.
Tarun is there.
Yes,
As
yes.
Dr.
Dr. Tarun Parmar.
As Dr. Vishal Poptani says, like, emphasis is on safety. You should not do it because you can do it. You should go ahead with the device closure while carefully planning it, seeing the imaging first. Like in this case, there is borderline IVC rim, but we do not know the quality of that IVC rim. It might be floppy. So, we have to see the sturdiness of the rims also. And we have to have a very good surgical backup in this case, because chances of complications are very high in this case. So as Dr. Amit Mishra sir says, that they come across some cases that he thinks that they should not go ahead with the with the device closure. So that cases should not be, deal with the device closure. So I think in this particular case, I need to see again the imaging first, and we can go ahead with the device closure in this case. It's not like this very large defect is not amenable to device closure. There are case reports where balloon assisted technique is like 90% successful in such like very large device closure. So
other thing I would like to point out, the devices which are available in market, if you are seeing the Amplatzer devices, it doesn't.
So time is up.
After 40 mm, yeah, just a second. After 40 mm, you don't get devices in Amplatzer, and in LifeTech, if you're talking, then 44 mm is a limit. So we have limitation in devices as well, but you can customize order. It is definitely definitely available. You have to customize it, and there are various case series which they have done. Even 46 and 48 device also has been implanted.
They are available with Occlutech. Talk about it.
Yeah, it's available, but customized. It's you have to order it, customize. So even LifeTech makes it, but you have to customize. You have to order it, and they will make it. But you have to be sure. Most important aspect is your imaging. Quality of imaging is a paramount importance in your
Easily
skill.
available. More than 44 probably you need to order. 48 they say they can provide you, but on demand.
Yeah. Yes, so 46, 48, they can customize, make it, LifeTech and Occlutech make it, but the safety data is limited. So you have to compare both pros and cons of those devices when you are talking about safety of these patients and when you have a surgical backup available. So again, so it's a topic of debate. When you have skilled surgery backup, my threshold won't be very high for sending this patient for surgery. At the same time, if I am confident and my imaging is adequate, I will go ahead with device and attempt it.
Very.
So Dr. Swati, we can conclude with your final comments.
A very fruitful discussion on what the best strategy should be. I think the highlight is that we have to select your case very carefully. You should know what you're doing. You should know that you can return back to safety, to the surgical net at any point before you actually put the device. So you do that, even if it means going out of the cath lab after TE. And we're all colleagues here, and the bottom line is patient welfare. Thank you all, the speakers, the chairpersons, and the moderators.